Hello, and welcome to the Pricing for the Planet week, day 4. So today we talked about green premium. And when I met Saloni, I was like, oh my god, what you are talking about is so complementary to this kind of discussion about green premium. So I'm super excited to have this, like exclusive webinar with Saloni on this critical topic. Saloni, again, thank you so much for being here. Would you mind maybe introducing yourself?
No, absolutely, Fabian. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm excited about the work you're doing in this area, and getting familiar with some of building of that awareness, right? Of how to do it well, and what are some of the examples there. Um, I am a professor of practice at Emory University Goisvera Business School, and I teach pricing strategy and monetizing and marketing innovations courses at Goisvera.
Perfect. And I think you have an expertise that I'm really interested in. And I think your introduction is way too simple to really represent your expertise, Saloni. So again, maybe for the quick story for the audience, I met you because you published a book that is exactly like that is exactly covering what we are talking about at Pricing for the Planet. So if you don't mind taking a couple of minutes to explain what you are talking about in your book, like where the audience can find
Yeah.
your book, etc.
Oh, wonderful, Fabian. So the book is called Purpose Driven Pricing, and it is available at all the national booksellers through Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and any of the websites to Rutledge, which and Taylor and Francis, which is the publisher of the book. I came across sort of I, this idea of purpose, right? That we've come across about companies doing corporate social responsibility. Um, but I also come across a lot of managers and even C-level executives that are struggling with the idea of how to put it in practice. So, of course, you have the corporate social responsibility group that is doing good things for social impact. But in many cases, it's kind of disconnected with business operations, which is still in many cases focused on profit and revenue share and growth, and kind of missing the overall picture. So the book helps companies put those together so they're making decisions that are aligned with the overall purpose of the company, and ways to do it where they're not sacrificing profit for purpose, but doing both in a holistic sense.
That's music to my ear. So this week we are really talking about one thing: sustainability, what to do and where to start. And given your expertise, Saloni, I just wanted to ask you this question very bluntly. What would be your recommendation?
um, Recommendation for how companies should sort of move forward, right? And we see in the book, we point out like 4 stages where companies sort of enter this process and the various barriers they have into moving forward. So I'll just start with a company that maybe has done nothing so far and is thinking about, how do I start this journey? What do I need to know? And the first step is really understanding about the impact that you're making to the environment, or your products and services are creating in the environment. And sort of looking at the overall impact of that. And so let me give you an example there. So, for example, if you're a company that is selling washing machines, right? Um, and the way you're contributing to the environment is, of course, through the energy consumption, but also water consumption, right? And looking at the overall impact of that, that if you reduce say the water usage or the energy usage that downstream consumer can benefit from, how do you sort of pull that all together into a thinking that impacts the overall consumption of water in the city that you're selling or the town that you're selling, and how can you sort of build that consciousness through your products?
Perfect. And that's kind of like stage one, or I don't know how you call, like, like, or early stage company, and then you have more mature company, right?
Yeah, so you start off at the very basic level of building that awareness. And then the second step is acquiring the knowledge to do it well.
Hmm.
That, that and I think a large percentage of small to medium businesses are kind of in that space where they want to do the right thing. They're aware of the impact of their products and services, but they don't know how to move to this next stage without compromising on the profitability objectives that the investors and stakeholders expect them to have. Um, and that's where the power of knowledge sort of comes in looking at not only your own industry but other parallel industries that are a few steps ahead, collaborating with the suppliers so that they are building into your raw materials, and then also attracting the right talent to build on those best practices. So the knowledge part is a very important part, and that's what I know you've been trying to do is kind of build the stream of knowledge, that companies in these stages don't feel like that's a barrier, right? That should not be something that you have to feel like you're making a trade-off, versus it's like more like, how do I do it? um, and we've seen several examples of companies being able to do that well, right? You see Unilever, Coca-Cola, many of these corporations have found a way to bring that together.
I love that, because I think during the entire week we talked about, very different topics, and I think we forget about this critical stage where it's all about education and talent management. We see a lot of company doing CSRD, especially in Europe. So it's like constructing or building the baseline, and then they jump into, like implementing, deploying, like sustainability roadmaps, and then they fail and they don't really understand why. And I think it's all about education. So I like your, like stage one, stage two is education, and we have actually well, we had a discussion like a couple of days ago with Stancy Wellen from NYU about Rosie. And I think
Oh,
Rosie is the exact, concept that 99.9% of the company, they don't get it. Like they are still using old way of calculating ROI. And then
right.
it's all about education. Like you need to train your teams to think about, like with this approach around Rosie. So I think you are spot on this stage, stage two in terms of maturity.
No, exactly. And I love the Rosie framework and how it kind of brings in the ROI for sustainability initiatives and allows you to sort of calculate the long term impact. So as you're going to senior level management, that you feel like you're looking at things in a long term view.
Perfect. So we've seen stage one, stage two. What is stage three?
Stage three is aligning your internal organizations to your external objectives,
Mhm.
where you're bringing those objectives into a functional level unit. Um, so, for example, many companies use you know John Doerr's OKRs, right, where you are looking at functional level objectives, very clear objectives of what you want to get to. um, so bringing those objectives down to the functional level, saying, okay, if as a company we want to be carbon neutral by 2035, um, can we start thinking about our new products and innovations, and have the objective of creating new products or new processes even that have zero carbon impact, right? So kind of bringing that down to the unit level objectives and incentivizing um, the smaller groups right within your company to be aligned well so that entire machinery is sort of moving in that direction. And the ROI framework is another example, right, where you can sort of bring that in into the innovation mindset of your innovation group, saying, okay, look at the ROSI framework because it has long-term impact, and that brings it down to developing any innovations. Also, many companies are not thinking about the government regulations that are coming and incorporating that into your ROI calculations and making decisions in light of that, which can have financial implications for a company.
Perfect. Love it. And then, so you ended up stage four. So what would be stage four?
Stage four is about bringing the consumers along in this process, and th- making them aware of the consumption patterns of your products and how it sort of impacts the environment, whether it's usage of certain times of day, right, water, or energy consumption, on how to sort of do that better. Many products, right, have a downstream impact on the environment. And to responsibility of the company at this next stage is kind of bringing the customers along in that pipeline, whether it's recycling, so showing ways to sort of recycle things better, so that they're coming back into the company as raw materials, which are an issue in the area of circularity, and also bringing your stakeholders along, like your value chain partners, along, educating them and bringing them along in the process. So the last stage is about bringing customers along, bringing your partners along, educating them. So the entire then community and societies are sort of moving towards the positive direction that we are looking.
Perfect. And I cannot wait to ask this question because that's really where I think you are excellent. It's really to explain the role of pricing in this big sustainability transformation. I think in purpose driven pricing, I was impressed by how you articulate the role of pricing. So I would love for you to share that with
Yeah.
the audience.
Absolutely, and we here are big believers, as pricing not only being a tactic but really being a strategic lever for a company and moving agendas for more than profitability. What I've seen in pricing, and this is just one idea, but what I'm seeing companies sort of manage pricing as they're going through the sustainability journey, is the first step is, say you identify a product that is environmentally friendly and has all the right characteristics, which is a very green product. You've put in a lot of R&D and change of processes to manufacture that, and one way to sort of recoup that from a business standpoint is have a green premium, right? And there is a segment of customers that is willing to pay more for these products. And that's a good sort of entry point for recouping some of those investments, but also building a product that is good for the environment and good for the planet. The next stage, right, is sort of looking at how do you build in those economies of scale and look at market share impact, because we do want more people to use products that are better for society, right? Like recycled packaging or recycled plastic. So the next stage is all about economies of scale. And I'll give you an example here. I was working with one of the largest companies here in Georgia that manufactures paper towels. And they had built a paper towel that is 100% compostable. Um, and they had an option to charge a small premium for it and introduce a new product line, or they could have just introduce the product and replace their conventional product completely off the shelf and just use the same price as they had earlier. Of course, if they went with a new SKU, the market share of the new SKU would be limited versus if they reintroduce this product as and completely replace their existing line, more people would be using the 100% compostable product. Um, Given the overall purpose objectives, right, of the company, um, and thinking about the financial aspect of it, both of those options were relatively profit neutral. Whether you go for larger market share at the same price or a smaller market share at a premium price. So the firm decided to replace their conventional line of products. There were many other considerations, when you're taking a product off the shelf. Um, but they replaced the line so that then more people were using this product that was environmentally friendly. It was a differentiator because they were the first mover in that space in their competition. So it was a win-win-win um, for the company, for the customers, as well as for the planet, right? Because we're thinking about planet as a stakeholder. Uh, so that would be sort of that next stage. We're looking at market share impact of your products and kind of making those trade-offs decisions. The third stage, Fabian, is kind of looking at overall target costing, cost reductions, and that's where working with your customers, working with your stakeholders, sort of comes in as well. Is sort of reducing the overall supply chain impact so that you can pass along these sort of prices. And I have several examples in the book where companies have sort of done that um, in sometimes creative ways, like reducing the size of the packaging, or sort of looking at maybe encouraging conscious consumption of the products, um, and sort of building that sort of forward.
It's super interesting because I think in what you said, you mixed the concept of pricing and the idea of shared value.
Hmm.
And with this idea that we need to ask companies to have additional responsibility than just kind of making money, which I think it's Jean Manuel Isare, GMI. He used to talk about that, saying like when you think about Ford Motor Company, for us now it's like okay, it's a big company and they are here to make Wall Street happy. But when you think about when Ford started the company, his entire idea was to make like the car affordable, and that's what they did. And a lot of companies like that, big companies today, used to think like that. Here is my mission, and that's what I want to achieve. And then I guess we lost this kind of like purpose and clear objective of the company because it became too big, and the funders are not around anymore. But I think if we reintroduce this idea of shared value, I think that's where pricing makes a lot of sense, because now pricing is an enabler for your mission.
Yes, pricing is and pricing is actually can be used very strategically, as you know, to direct demand, right? And if you think about um, customer segments, right, that would potentially purchase or not purchase environmental friendly products. So the segmentation analysis that we've done for many CPG companies kind of boils down to customers grouping in s- four segments. Okay. There is a customer that will pay the premium price for the product, um, which is a certain, I think it's around like 15 to 17% of the market typically. Then there's a customer that will buy the environmentally friendly product as far as it's the same price as a conventional product.
Yeah.
So sustainability in that sense for that product, for that customer, is a preference driver. They prefer the sustainable product, but they're not willing to pay more for it.
Mhm.
Um, and then there is this third group that are price shoppers that really are looking at buying something that is of decent quality at the cheapest price, and they're not really sort of loyal to the idea of sustainability or environment. They just want something that will be work well for their families. So they need a product that is actually maybe cheaper than the conventional product to get them to use the environmentally friendly product. And then the fourth is customers that are actually they suspect environmentally friendly products, and they have this perception that they're not good, that they will not do a good job. And that's the hardest group to bring into the fold sometimes. And they're for them, it's usually they have no other choice, but there's nothing else in the marketplace, and they have to buy what's on the shelf, which is the sustainable products. And hopefully by that time, in your innovation diffusion, you are at a point where the performance of the environmentally friendly product is as good or better than the conventional
Mhm.
product, and you can really replace that entire SKU.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Hmm. Yeah, l- you know, love what you said. And if I can come back on something that you said that was very interesting, because I really see the parallel now between what you said at the beginning, like the four stages of like your path, your journey towards sustainability. If we stop at the stage two, because the first idea is like stage two education. Okay, I need to like bring education, or to make sure that my team, they are, like they
Yes.
are learning the right topics around sustainability. But I think it's not only sustainability. I think the pricing and monetization skill set is crucial if you want to be successful in this transformation towards sustainability. So is it part of what you are saying in this stage two? And maybe I misunderstood this stage two. For me, stage two was really around sustainability. Would you include like pricing strategy, and monetization strategy inside this stage two for like the sustainability path?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's not just in stage two. I feel like the pricing and monetization is so strategic
Mm,
that um, it has to be a skill set that you need through the four stages to make sure that you're making the right economic decisions from a financial standpoint, with the awareness of the impact it's bringing to the environment. So I feel like the education part, yes. I feel like in the second stage, it's very important to get that education of what are the best practices. But I do think that it's not something that you can sort of say, okay, we're done with this stage, so we can get rid of that expertise. I feel like that expertise is so core to moving things forward in so that the company continues to be profitable, as well as does the right thing for the environment. I feel like that is an important aspect to always sort of reform and improve and continuously evolve as the customers sort of evolve in that diffusion stage, and your company sort of now has evolved into a different stage, right?
yeah. And maybe last question, because I want to be respectful of your time, Saloni. You talked in your book about the role of pricing for societal good. Can you explain maybe, or give example for the audience to clearly, like, to help them clearly wrap their head around that?
Yes, that is that every time I talk about that, they feel like, what pricing? And then, and how does that impact sort of for social good and NGOs, and how does that sort of play into um, the nonprofit mindset? And I'll give you a couple of examples here, so that to illustrate how pricing can have a very important aspect, can be very important aspect of even in NGOs or developmental organizations. So um, in Cairo, there's this park called Al Azhar Park, and
Yeah.
that used to be a dump ground for the entire city. A developmental agency, AKDN, came in and invested resources to actually make that a green space for Cairo. Now that area is called like the lungs of Cairo because that is the only green space that is around in a very busy metropolitan area. Um, there was something that they did that was not initially very well received by the locals. And that was that they started charging a small fee to enter the park. Um, and usually, when a developmental agency comes in, the idea is that they would donate that to the city and leave. Um, But what this development agency, AKDN, did was they started charging a small fee, and that fee actually went into a fund that was used for that park's sustenance and maintenance. Um, so over time, what we saw is that park continued to flourish and developed, became a attraction, one of the
Yeah.
top tourist attractions in Cairo. There's industries like tourist industries, handicrafts, and things that started flourishing around the park, which kind of gave an economic boost to this that area of town. Um, Very similarly, just a few miles down, there was another park developed by the city that did not actually charge an entrance fee. And if you compare that park today, that's become a park of illegal activity, of drug dealing, of not maintenance, people home, people using that as a place to live. So you can see that the investment, right, of developmental resources by charging a small price was better utilized over the long term. The, so pricing has a very key impact to kind of say that it allows you to use resources because it has that, oh, I'm paying for something, so I should use it well. It has that behavioral implication, right? A psychological implication. Um, Another example was the example of mosquito nets that were given out in Africa as well, in many countries in Central Africa. And many NGOs gave them out for free. Um, so because they were free, the local residents didn't use it, and they always felt like they could go get another one. So you found them polluting riverbeds and lakes. Um, and then they went back in and started charging a small fee for it, and realized that it was better used. People valued it. There was less waste, and so on and so forth. So you see big implications of sort of small fees, right? That you can charge to encourage certain types of behaviors.
Yeah, I love the example of the park in Cairo. I think that makes so much sense. Well, Saloni, a huge thank you. It was super, super interesting. For the audience, that's the end of day 4. Tomorrow, we will kind of switch topic and we'll talk about supply chain because
Okay.
it's like we spent the past 4 days talking about pricing, the rough pricing, business models, green premium. And then the point is like, if you reach a point where there is no willingness to pay, there is
Mm-hmm.
no business model to to imagine around your product or your service where you can still craft like a very sustainable supply chain that will deliver value. So that's what we will talk about tomorrow.
Fantastic.
Saloni, again, a huge thank you. And for the audience, I think we will publish a podcast episode that will be
Oh,
much more tailored around the book that Saloni has written and her journey. So feel free to come back and check our YouTube channel or our podcast channels to get the full podcast.
thank you, Fabian. Enjoyed being here.
Thanks a lot. Be well.